The following interview was part of the research carried out for an episode of Imagining Tomorrow, a hope-filled podcast made in partnership with Friends of the Earth. A link to the episode can be found in the video notes, or you can go to foe.uk/Imagining Tomorrow to find all of the episodes released so far. Enjoy! Hello, thank you so much for joining me today. I was wondering if you could introduce yourself and explain what Footsteps is.
Yes, thank you, Emma. And first of all, thank you for inviting me and for giving me the opportunity to speak. It's just fantastic to be here. My first podcast I'm doing while being a campaigner. So my name is Toqueer. I'm a community connector with Footsteps. Footsteps is an interfaith environmental arm of Birmingham Council of Faiths, which action across lots of different things.
Fantastic. So I was reading about Footsteps on the website, and it said that it was formed after a walk of witness, and then an interfaith meeting that happened after the Paris climate conference in 2015. And I was wondering if you could explain to me what a walk of witness is.
Yes, a walk of witness is a coming together of all the different faith leaders, people from different faiths, of no faiths as well. This is all about bringing people together, and it was a recognition of our shared values and our duty of care to planet Earth, and with the Paris Agreement, I think it was in the minds of so many of us, and especially the faith leaders of Birmingham, and there was a sense of kind of a moral duty to act on climate. So yeah, they all came together. They walked to outside the council house, and there was a letter that was signed by the different faith leaders from the Birmingham faith leaders group, and it was the beginning of a blossom of where Footsteps kind of came to be.
Fantastic. I can imagine how powerful a statement that must have been as well for the people in the council offices. I love that kind of stuff. So Footsteps has got lots of different branches, lots of different things that it's involved in. But what I'd really love to talk to you about is Project 4F. So I was wondering if you could tell me about Project 4F and the successes that you've had with it.
I think Project 4F is one of our most successful projects. It came about, I think, more than over a year ago now, with the cost of living crisis. There was this massive need in the community for kind of faith-led guidance on support, mainly on kind of energy kind of assessments, or just how do you kind of engage with the community. So from Birmingham City Council and from the 3D data hub data grants, we were able to apply for some funding for 2 years projects. And what we decided to do is to, myself as a community connector and somebody who's from the Islamic faith, I was able to go and arrange meetings with faith leaders from different places from the Islamic faith predominantly, but also other faith communities as well. Birmingham is very diverse. It's majority minority. I think 51% on a consensus is actually from different communities. It just started from there, and then what was fantastic to see was that the real kind of the willingness from the community leaders to engage, and by working with a gentleman called Phil Beardmore, who's an expert on building energy assessments, and who's from Community Confidence, a charity that supports people, and people can find out more about him. He's on Twitter as well. We were able to start, but what was key was the fact that building relationships. Footsteps, we see ourselves as the interrelationship kind of group. We're the kind of people that brings lots of people together, a network of communities. And we were able to do 12 in a year, which is across different faiths, and people can find out more on the Footsteps' website, which I hope you could share the link later on. But what was the kind of key learning was the fact that there's still there's still a long way to go. Our success was people took an interest in the building energy assessments, but then it was the know-how, it was who to go to, the builders, where to get the grants from, and that is still work in progress. But the early steps of actually community knowledge, education, we got the building blocks of having more sustainable relationships going forward.
Fantastic. And so the energy assessments were done on different places of worship, weren't they? So was that like looking at heat loss and how things like that could be improved? That was the focus of the energy assessments.
Yes, predominantly yes. I think it was looking at heat loss, and also looking at opportunities for insulation or whatever was required. So the wonderful thing working with Eco Birmingham, which is a charity in Northfield, which were part of the project, and Phil Beardmore, was the fact that a comprehensive report was able to be produced, which outlined the different costs, the different kind of options which were available depending on kind of user, how members of the congregation or community groups use a faith building. So for example, a mosque, for example, Al Hijra Mosque, which is in Small Heath, is a massive space. So they've got different buildings. So they've got buildings for education, they've got community hall. And sometimes advice could be as simple as actually having using technology. So having computers or having zonal. So depending on where you are, having heating control systems that would actually manage and control. So, but the key important thing is that it's knowledge.
I was amazed by how 6.6 tons of carbon dioxide has been saved just from locations that have already taken part in Project 4F. And you just said earlier that there are literally hundreds of places of worship just in Birmingham alone. If we look at places of worship across the country, do you think that we could have similar savings in those buildings if the same approach was taken?
Yes, definitely, yes. And I think the key thing, one of the things that we've done as Footsteps and benefited from is you have to think of it in the sense of relationships, and you have to see it in the sense of sometimes technical language, like for example installation or things like that. We really need to understand deeply about the issues, about what the expectations are, what the motives of these faith places of worship, and where we Footsteps come in is to bridge the gap with knowledge and education, from working with experts who can then help inform about the benefits. If climate change can seem so distant, and it doesn't seem relatable to the everyday person. So I think we can bring it down to where people are in terms of their lived experiences. For example, faith places of worship are going to be really cold places, people, where there's activity taking place, whether it's warm welcome spaces, whether it's a community cafe or women's group or whatever's happening there, people are using it. And while people are there, you want people to experience, to be comfortable and not to experience cold. And also the huge amounts of the resources, the funds, which can then, as I mentioned earlier, could then be used for other purposes. So I think what we've been able to do is continue the communication. So from initially arranging the meeting as the community connector myself, to then involving the Phil Beardmore, to then him doing the energy assessments and then having a follow-up. But keeping in contact is key. So knowing who the person with the responsibility is key. So one of the things that we found out from our journey is that initially we didn't always know who the key person was. So we would look at the website. A lot of places of worship do have websites, especially those who are active in the community, they're those that provide services, but not all are. So we would have an email address or telephone number, but not all of them would have that position of power, the decision makers. So that's what we learned. It's important to find out who the person you're speaking to, what their role is within the church or within the mosque, and also how important it is to educate where the whole cabinet or the whole the groups of people, and that takes time. So even in a climate emergency, sometimes I think we could rush into something. We want everything now, but I think in terms of doing it right, I think we have to. Patience is a faith quality about really deep listening. And to come back to your point about the 6.6 tons of emissions, I think it's amazing for us as a small group. We are a group of volunteers. I don't know whether you know this, but there's probably less than half a dozen of us active, and we have been able to bring in people who from different faiths together, but generally who care, and that's the key. It's the human qualities is what binds us together, which is the shared faith values that all of the faith teaches, which is about care for the planet, but at the same time this kind of compassion for other human beings. I think it's it's a great, amazing kind of motivator, and I think because of our different faiths, I think we can it has definitely made us kind of resilient in the sense that, we know the challenges ahead of us is so great and kind of unimaginable, and kind of the horror of the kind of the world end kind of scenario that you hear a lot about, Armageddon. But one of the things that, as a Muslim, if I can finish off with this point, is what can I do? When the dinosaurs went extinct, there's things that we don't have control over, but there are so many things that we do have control over. So I say to your audience members and people who are listening is actually look at your passions, look at things that actually motivate you, and everyone can make a difference. But if you have something that you love and something that you're really passionate about, that in itself endures you. It really helps you push through challenges and difficult time, and you don't have to do this on your own. And having people to talk to or talking to others, friends, and there's so many kind of groups out there where people can connect. It could be a faith, but it could be a community group. You don't have to do this on your own. So I think that's a wonderful thing about Footsteps, is that we are doing this together.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's a very good point when you say, what can I do? And then the next question could be, what can we do? And if you scale up that 6.6 tons across the country, across hundreds of places of worship, that is a huge impact led by just a small group of people. So yeah, highly inspirational. So if someone is listening to this and is thinking, wow, this is amazing, and I would like to do something like this for my place of worship and get a similar kind of energy assessment, what would be the next step that they could take? What advice would you give them in terms of practical things they could do to move forwards? Where do you start?
I think the best place to start, I think, for anyone that's interested in faith place of worship building energy assessments, is that we have been really blessed in the sense that, based on our success of having trial building energy assessments, we have been able to have money that we have available, and we are looking at grants so that we can continue to do further building energy assessments. So I would say, get in contact with Footsteps. Just type in Footsteps Birmingham in Google. You can go on our website, click on Project 4F. You can see case studies on there. Email us, and what we do is that we'll have the initial meeting where we can actually find out a bit about your needs, about your motives, and what help and support you need, and then we can, based on our success, and the way we work has been really successful. We will do what we can to help and support you. And what we're particularly looking for is that we're particularly looking for those faith-based worship on there where there's the greatest need. I think what's fantastic about what the Church of England are doing is that they've got the 2030 net zero goal, and they're really pushing on. And so they have got a lot of their own resources, but a lot of the kind of minority faiths, for example, like mosques, like gurdwaras and Buddhist temples on there, perhaps may not have those financial might in terms of resources. So we really like to hear from those faith-based worship on there who are from the social, economic, challenging kind of communities on there to come forward. So I'll say, as a community connector from Footsteps, as a Muslim greeting, peace to you all, and definitely please come and email us. And if you are interested, get in contact with us.
Fantastic, thank you. Once you have the information from the energy assessments, and you said that you can see the different options that are available, what you can do, the practical steps that you can take to improve the building in terms of heat loss and energy usage. How difficult is it to get grant funding to pay for the work to be done? Now you know what to do. How do you unlock the funding to do that?
I think it's a really, really good question, and it's probably a question that a lot of the faith-based worship are thinking about. I don't have the answer to that, but based on some of the examples that we have, there was a recently Islamic Education Center. Can't think of the name off the top of my head, but you can find it on their website, where they were able to put £10,000 of their own money and £20,000 from a grant. But the changes were very, very minor. It was heating control systems, zonal, which means that depending on where people are when they had their kind of education courses and lessons, you would heat those warms up. So it's about managing the heat as well. So simple changes. But I think but what can help, I think what we provide is a report. So that report is evidence which can then be used to support in application form for grants. Really, I think the onus, it definitely has to be on, for example, on the faith place of worship themselves to actually talk to the community congregation. So in sermons, because for Footsteps, it has to be one of the priorities. But when you got challenging needs, like for example the cost, this can seem such a distant thing to think about. But what we what we try to do is help the kind of faith leaders to think about that this is very much part of everything. It's comprehensive. It is about the food. It's about everything. It's about the environment and about people and about animals. It's about biodiversity. It's everything. That it's all inclusive. So definitely, I don't know particularly what grants are available. However, in terms of, for example, what we can do as being part of Birmingham Council of Faith is that we can then perhaps, the faith leaders came back to us and said, we are interested now to make those changes, and we are looking into grants. With our networks and connections with the Birmingham City Council and the West Midlands Combined Authority, what we can then do is we can then be the connector and find grants and support that is available for faith-based worship, and then kind of connect them with that. I think that's a wonderful thing, being part of it. Gives us a voice at the stakeholders across the city. So we can then, when we engage, when we meet lots of different stakeholders, like the business community, we can then we know who to connect people with, the right people with. So that's what I say is, I think the first step is to do the building energy assessments and to have the report, and then Footsteps can support you in looking for grants.
Brilliant, thank you. So one of the things I've really loved reading about Footsteps and speaking to you is how it's brought people of multiple faiths together in a common cause. And I was thinking about how with so many people that I've spoken to, there are always other benefits to the community that have grown out from the original project. So I was wondering what other benefits have come about because of the work that you've been doing together in Footsteps.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a great question. I think there's so many benefits. I think one of the things that Footsteps does is an interfaith walk. So we have one coming up. So during the summer, during the 6 weeks holidays, we like to bring families together from people of faith and no faith. And this year we're hoping to visit Highbury Park. For your viewers who probably don't know Highbury Park, there is the home of the former Prime Minister. Chamberlain residence is there. There's also a growing orchard project. So it's a faith that brings people together, but at the same time, it shows. It not only does it show people the kind of wonderful kind of community activities, it also kind of helps people get connected with those things that perhaps that they maybe didn't think about, but when now that they're aware of things happening in their local community, would want to get involved in. And walking is great. Health and well-being, I think, is also one of the things which is really important to Footsteps, and especially Birmingham Council of Faith, about Birmingham Council of Faith, linking up with the kind of the healthcare, the NHS, in terms of social prescribing. So there is huge emphasis on looking at isolation, mental health. So this is about care. So it comes down to care ultimately, and which kind of all the faiths kind of talk about. It goes back to our shared values. So there's I think a few years ago we visited a local farm in Bolswell Heath, which is in Birmingham area, and it was nice to see some chickens and some goats, and it's not something that you would expect to see, especially in the cities. Farm is something quite seen out of the city centre, but I think for us it's about friendships. It comes down to there's something. For me as human beings, I think, we learned during the pandemic how isolated we became, and how, we were on Zoom, and it was great that people were able to connect on Zoom, like, I'm having an interview with you, over the internet. But that human, I think people started to realize how, we don't realize it before that, how important human touch was. We weren't allowed to hug, and the love and the care and being neighbor, being good neighbors, and huge amounts of COVID-19 solidarity groups set up. Where I'm sitting now at Friends of the Earth. The Warehouse Cafe, a vegan cafe, they closed down, but they used the space to become a COVID-19 solidarity kitchen, giving out 500 meals to people in the local community, to elderly and people who are self-isolating. So I think support. I think it goes back to our chat earlier before the interview about that you don't have to do this on your own, and we don't sci-fi or being a superhero and having the whole world on it. I think being a superhero is actually knowing that we're part of a wider community. That what makes the superheroes is not the fact that it's me doing it. What makes the superheroes is knowing that we are doing it, and that somehow that my knowledge or my wisdom and my action can somehow inspire others to actually get involved, and they can inspire me, and we can support each other in good times and in bad times on there. Really, that's to me, that's what a superhero is. And I think everyone, no matter who people are, what background they come from, or whether they're from the south of the world, or whether they're from the third world countries where climate change has kind of really, devastated so many people on there. That human quality of kind of, just continue to never give up. I think that's so needed more than ever.
Thank you. Do you have any advice for anybody who wants to bring groups of multiple faiths together to help each other to take action on climate change?
I think anything that I share it comes from my own lived experience. I think somebody once asked me once a question, which I think I wanted to know. I've always been interested in philosophy about what is wisdom. I think wisdom is actually your own footpath in your own journey and the experiences and what you learn from your life and everyone, and that is wisdom, and that's very different to knowledge. And what I would say to people is actually start with where you are, look at the people around you. If you go to university, look at your friends, where they're from, whether you are working and your staff and the multi-faith, taken into mosques every year, have open days. We recently had Eid, which was Eid al-Adha, it's very special celebration in the Muslim calendar. And we had also, for the first time in King's Heath, we had Eid for all, which is all about bringing the community of celebrating Eid, but being inclusive and including people from other faiths. So I would think about, just I would as a Muslim, for those that haven't been to a mosque before, let me welcome you and invite you to attend a mosque at an open day wherever you are across the country. For all your viewers who are listening today, during Interfaith Week in November, there's lots of open, my mosque, which a lot of mosques open their doors, and you definitely be welcome. You got nothing to be fearful about. I think some of the etiquettes, I think only there. I think for you to be able to get the full experience, like for example, female wearing scarves. But it's not even compulsory. A lot of mosques, for example, in Birmingham Central Mosque was the first purpose-built mosque in the late 19. When it had this open day, it normally had exhibitions. Nobody brings in lots of interesting, old Qurans from Ottoman Empire, 5th, 6th century. You're talking about artifacts and real, like, kind of, something that you can actually, not only it's great, great insight. It's a great day out for the family. Great food as well. So all I say to people, whether, look at your faith can do to invite people from people of other faiths. And I think that's a great way to just actually, just first of all, actually start the conversation, but start with just getting to know each other as people first, rather than going into, sometimes we can focus on the climate change straight away. But we have to remember that we all, people come from different experiences and different knowledge about their understanding about the world around them. So to start, just, make friends. That's what I say.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, definitely. Absolutely. So what has been the most surprising result of your work with Footsteps? Was there something that happened where you thought, I absolutely did not expect that at all?
I've been with Footsteps for a while now, I think over 4 years, and I was thinking, I've done so many different things with Footsteps. I think there's lots, but what I want to share with your audience, I've shared with you my blog. I went to Kinder in Trespass for the first time, which was the 100-year anniversary for the Socialist Workers Group protesting against people, from being able to access the countryside. And even today, there's a lot of restrictions. A lot of people don't realize it. There's issues about people actually camping in private land, and there's so many people on there own 800 and 100,000 acres of private land, and it's about right to roam. And I've written an article about it, and it was my first time actually visiting a countryside. My parents are from Pakistan, so there's mountains where we are, and hillside. But why I've never been before, probably there was no connection. I live born in Warsaw, live in Birmingham now. It's always been urban. That's all I've ever known. All I've ever seen is concrete. Maybe been to a local park. Why would I want to go? What reason would I have to go? So I've written an article in my blog. But what Footsteps do, for me, is special. It's about young people. Footsteps also has Small Footsteps, which is about giving opportunities for people to learn about the faith, and about nature. So it gives what does the faith of each different different faiths, like Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, what do they say about nature and care for planet, and looking at verses from the scripture, and actually as a way for people to engage. Whether and last year we did a 3-day activity at the Eco Park, which is in Small Heath, which is a Birmingham Black Country Wildlife Trust nature reserve. And it's a fascinating place. I think it reminds me of like Wind in the Willows, or it's just one of those beautiful places that you wouldn't know existed unless there was a reason for you to go there. And there was a moment, I think it was amazing, and I shared this with the audience. I think there was a young boy on there, and he's quite shy, but he noticed a butterfly, and there was this, butterflies do what butterflies do, you know, just be roam freely, and he just wanted to catch it, and he was chasing it around and with full of kind of enthusiasm, and then he caught it for a moment on there, and all of us from our enthusiasm wanted to take a closer look at this beautiful white butterfly. And then after a while on there, he kind of, he just kind of let it go, and I think one of the other kids, said to him, "Why did you let the butterfly go?" And as kids do, with all the innocence, said, "Yeah, well, the butterfly, yeah, needs to be free." And so I think what was so wonderful to see, and the importance of nature and actually for everyone, but especially for children who don't have even gardens or live in high-rise buildings or don't have any connection to nature, to connect them so that they can experience and imagine a world where nature is all around us, where it's a part of our everyday life and existence. And I think for me, I think what Footsteps does with small footsteps, I think the future bodes well. I would have to say for that younger generation. I remember 2019 when the youth strikes happened. Fridays for Future, Greta Thunberg. Once upon a time, if there's any action that where people, any doubters out there who believe that small actions can't make a massive difference, how one young girl can, missing school, any other person would be, you got to detention, and you're a troublemaker, can then inspire so many young people across the world. And in Birmingham, the young strikers worked to actually force the city council to declare climate change emergency. It was their passion and coming out, and 3,000 people came out in 2019, and Birmingham declared a climate change emergency, and it was due to the real our future, whether young people, many of them, in 13, 14 years old, very, very young, really we're saying to the adults, we're saying to us and those that, what kind of world are you leaving us? Why, you may be gone maybe from 40, 50 years from now, but what about us and what about our children? I think a lot more parents, a lot more grandparents, I think a lot more older people started getting involved. I think once they heard that it kind of resonated with them. And I think stories are important. I'm sharing my story, but everyone has a story. I think David Attenborough with his, when we saw, the fish or the bird, and it kind of brought to life the kind of the suffering of nature. Before that, climate change was talked about for 20, 30 years. Scientists have been talking about it for many a decade. But why was it that David Attenborough's series had so much of a effect on all of us and people across Europe? Why? Because it brought our humanity to life. I think that for me, I think we should never forget that.
Thank you. Would you be happy to talk about how your faith helps you to take action on climate change?
Yes. So I'm a Muslim, and for what we believe in this one supreme creator, Allah, which in Arabic means one true God, and who created all of us, all human beings, angel, jinn, means translated into mischievous being, for his worship, everything from trees, and we are seen as representatives of God on earth. everything is a trust. So not everything, including kind of our human body and what we do and what we eat, in terms of um, our responsibility to the world. Um, there's a verse in the Quran where God says, "I've created the world in balance, so keep it in balance. Don't transgress, don't violate the kind of the boundaries of nature." And I think I think having a faith which actually explains to me my purpose, explains to me my duty, my role, responsibility. I think that's a really powerful, kind of powerful in the sense that it kind of is as a driving factor in terms of especially when times are tough. I can say, well, there's a God out there who's in control of everything, but I shouldn't worry about things I don't have control over. Is what my Lord expects of me is what contribution, what positive contribution am I making to the world, and that's what I feel like for me, what my faith does for me.
Thank you. What are you most proud of when you consider everything that Footsteps has done? What is the thing that you're most proud of? Would you say that it's the small footsteps that you talked about, or is there something else as well that you think, oh, I'm so proud of what we did?
I think I think being the face of Footsteps in the community as a community connector, and being the person that his job is to go and meet and bring people together. I think, I will use the word proud. I would say I'm humbled to be given that opportunity by Footsteps, and I want to thank Footsteps. I want to thank, Chris Martin, who's the chair, is also a member of the Quakers and works tirelessly. And there's so many amazing people behind the scenes that probably, we wouldn't hear of. So we're a family that are very supportive of each other, but definitely, and to see that to see people resonate with me, it makes me, it's amazing feeling that when I know that the effort which I put in to try to support different faiths, not only to come together, but for example, we talked about the building energy assessment work, and if I briefly mention a new project, which is a follow up on that, which is our community energy in the home, which is very much about helping ordinary people. So we learned that it was important about what can we do to support people in their homes, and so we worked with to create some flashcards, which are more like discussions that people can have with their family members, but it's when they meet up with their friends in the mosques, in the churches, they can have conversation to create a community support network. And we launched it at Al Hijra Mosque, which was well attended. Shows you that our work, our mission is not finished yet. Uh, we feel like really kind of blessed that that we are you know according to our faith, doing kind of trying to be those representatives of our faith the best we can. So I think for me, definitely to see some of the work which I've been doing come to life, and actually changes happen, that I've somehow made a small contribution in bringing about positive environmental social change in Birmingham, and that can perhaps inspire people across the country. It's a really fantastic feeling.
Absolutely. I think the ripples that come out from your work are going to be far and wide, and we've already seen what's been happening. It's brilliant. So thinking more broadly, if there was anything that you could change in the world, be it an attitude towards something, or I don't know, a piece of legislation, anything at all, if you could change it, what would you change and why?
I think it's difficult to choose one. But I think the only thing that would change would be the huge, I think, injustices against young girls and women in the world. I think for me to be involved in lots of different groups. Also, I mentioned to you before the interview, I mentioned it now, is Muslim Women's Network, which supports all women, set up by Muslim women's women suffer from domestic violence, I was able to, with my good attitude, learn about issues that affect women. But then but then at the same time continue to learn about gender imbalance in education, but in across sector. And I think, if you have more than half the population which are in the world, which are inactive, whether it's in education, whether it's employment on there, your whole society, it doesn't will not function the way it should. And also, we need to recognize that, these roles that, are probably man-made, coming from history and how it was on there. The importance of actually recognizing the injustice, but actually looking at who's best to correct them. And, for me, the key learning, I think, is that in spaces where women need to figure out for themselves, it needs to be women led. They need to decide their own life and their own future. Where men shouldn't meddle is in those spaces on there which are not for men. I think the key thing is actually, we come back to just our humanity, which I mentioned from our faith, and actually showing what gender you are, and whoever you are or what culture you come from. Deep down, we're human beings, so we've got so much more in common. Where the difference is, that comes from education and learning. So definitely, I think, education, I think definitely. I know the United Nations has young girls, education, but it's also about so many more things, healthcare as well. And this country, childcare, for example, the former, I think the former Supreme Court judge, I don't know her name, maybe you know her name, which recently retired from the United States on there. She wrote a book, and in her book she wrote about poverty as being a massive barrier for women in order to empower themselves, and how, for example, as women have children, childcare, and we find in this country, for example, the cost of childcare and how that is a barrier. Many women do work such as care worker, healthcare. A lot of low-paid work are done by women. The unequal in pay kind of built on from attitudes maybe 100 years ago. And in Parliament and in a lot of institutions where men are the ones in kind of senior executive positions, I think changing or providing more route or these support for childcare, like I mentioned, so women can be in those boardrooms, want those jobs. Engineering, for example, there's lots of jobs on there which are predominantly male, with a lot of women would want to go to, but then the culture might not be right. But yeah, so for me, definitely, I think that would be definitely one thing that I would hope to kind of inspire. And I think for me, yeah, definitely, I think having lots of female friends, and for me, just I think, which I want to share with your viewers on there, it's just, I think being you it's more than just one thing. I think one thing which I don't really understand about society is we get this fixation with sexuality, with gender, and I think we're so much more than that as human beings. I think we're learning all the time about ourselves. We're learning about the world. We're a spiritual and learning being, and I think labels don't help. They become barriers for our human kind of endeavor and like kind of progression. So treat people the way you want to be treated, and if you're not sure of anything, ask. There's no such thing as an odd or weird question. There's only learning.
And if you could invent anything, what would you invent?
It's a great question. I'm a big Doctor Who fan. I know you're a big sci-fi. I'll share a funny story with you. So in the BBC, we have the BBC West Midlands at a place called the Mailbox. And one day I went to visit it. I thought this is a fascinating building, and they said, "Do we have a Doctor Who exhibition upstairs?" So that's interesting. In 19, probably retro stuff, but God behold, they had the Doctor Who box. I couldn't. I had to. I think they had a sign there which said "Do not enter." But for some reason on there, I think my imagination got the better of me. I entered it, and for a moment on there, I think I nearly got stuck with the door, I think. And I think there was a moment then there was a bit of dread, which I was more concerned about whether it was a real box and I would end up in a different dimension, or whether I would come out or not. So that's already been invented. But if I think I know that maybe I'm copying the idea of a Doctor Who box on there, but I think there's something about going to the future, or going into the past. I loved history. I did history GCSE. It was one of the few subjects I was really good at. I could look at any cartoon and tell you what the cartoon was telling. Is one of my kind of great hobbies, and I think was one of the reasons I got an A for GCSE history. I did A levels. Picture says 1,000 words. But definitely a Doctor Who kind of like futuristic box. I would go into the future. I just want to know, I want to know, would I want to know, maybe not too much in the future, but into the future, and then I can maybe like, meet someone and say I'm from the past, and see whether whatever, where maybe have they learned lessons or not learned lessons on there. But other love history. Maybe I would want to go to the past as well, because if some of the decisions that we are making about climate change could have been taken maybe 20, 30 years down the line beforehand, maybe we would make it would have made such a massive difference. So that's what I would say. Doctor Who type modern kind of transport.
Yeah, I would like that too. Yeah, definitely. Well, that's everything for today. Thank you so much for giving up your time and sharing your thoughts, and being so inspiring. I love the work that you've been doing. I love what Footsteps have been doing, and more of this across the world, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, and also for your viewers. For anyone that's interested, I've recently set up a blog. It's called Toqueer Green Blog. Do your best to share it with your viewers, and I've got some insightful videos, especially in Birmingham, but not always in Birmingham, about my experiences to new places. First time especially being a minority campaigner. I think it'd be definitely intriguing and interesting for your readers to hear about kind of my adventures. I call it my little green adventures. Always something interesting I find. And I love histories. I always like to share intriguing facts about intriguing stories about places which I visit, from old churches to beautiful canals. Birmingham has more canals than Venice. I don't know whether your viewers know that. But things like that. So please do follow me, subscribe if you're interested. And I want to thank, I want to thank yourself, and thank you, Friends of the Earth, for the platform, and for giving me the opportunity. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. You can find other research interviews in the Imagining Tomorrow playlist, or go to www.foe.uk/Imagining Tomorrow to find the episodes released so far, or go to your podcast provider of choice and search for Imagining Tomorrow. Bye!